Today we're going to replace the ball joints on a 2007 Saturn Vue. And you can couple this project with replacing a lot of these suspension components. So today I'm going to be doing the CV axle, inner and outer tie rods, the ball joints and the sway bar links. So here's some of the tools you might need for this job. Number one is a long breaker bar to get the wheel nut off when replacing the CV axle, and also some large sockets for getting that wheel nut off. Other things, grease, which is really good for filling these Zerk fittings on tie rods and ball joints. And also a bag of tools, and if doing the inner tie rods, then an inner tie rod loosener and tightener tool, which you can rent for free at places like Pep Boys and AutoZone. And I've got a 50-50 mix of acetone and transmission fluid, which is really good as a penetrating fluid, and that will get the lug nuts off and wheel nuts and anything which is seized on. Also some brake cleaner is nice just for cleaning things up. Let's get to work. First thing you want to do is take off the dust cover. Loosen the lug nuts. With the lug nuts broken and loose, jack up the vehicle and place on jack stands. Alright, with the vehicle securely on jack stands, I've chopped it off on ramps too. Just give it a tiny little shake to make sure it's safe and that you feel comfortable working under it. Next thing, take the wheel off. Alright, the first thing we want to do is remove the outer tie rod. It's an 18mm bolt down here. You can see this is pretty gone, so before you start any of these projects, make sure you have all the parts you need, because you're going to be in here, you might as well do them all at the same time. So see, this is gone. So 18mm, pop this nut off. You may need a little penetrating fluid on any bolts that are rusted or hard to get at. Okay, this is kind of what I resorted to. I put a little clip around the pliers to keep it in the brake rotor there, keeps that in place while I undo it. I had to also drill a hole into the side of this nut as well. It's absolutely seized on there, but finally getting started now. Now the nut is finally off the outer tie rod, just get a big hammer and give it a whack. It should loosen it from the knuckle. So these lower ball joints are one of the most annoying things to replace on the Saturn, because they're riveted in, and the only way to get them out is to drill them out. You can see there's 3 kind of rivet bolts in there, and we're going to need to drill every single one of those out in order to just get this ball joint out. You can see the boot here is all split, cracked, all the grease has come out. And a view from the other side there, so it really needs replacing because that joint is probably knackered now. Yeah, so we're going to need to drill those 3 kind of rivets out. That's going to be the first step here. What other people do is replace the whole lower control arm, which is and it comes with the joint because it's riveted on, so that's this whole piece all the way up to here, and you would just unbolt it right here. It is obviously more expensive, but that option's up to you. On top of the ball joint here, there's a castle nut. You can see there's a pin going through there. We're going to need to take that little pin out of the nut. Just use some pliers and a screwdriver just to make it kind of straight and knock it through. Alright, with the pin removed, you might need a little penetrating fluid just to get that castle nut off. It might be quite stubborn. Now the castle nut is 18mm, and you will need an open-ended box wrench to take that off. To remove the ball joint from the knuckle, just push down on it. You can see it's almost like a spring-loaded mechanism here. If you're replacing the whole control arm, you just need these 2 bolts here, and also this right here, and that should just remove the whole control arm. You can replace the whole assembly then. But what we're going to do, we're going to drill downwards. That's a lot easier than drilling upwards. So with this removed from the knuckle, we can just push this out of the way and get a drill straight on down, and you'll have a better time than drilling from the bottom facing up. So now when drilling these out, the aim is just to drill wide enough so this top pops off. That way we can just hit this with the hammer, and this should just fall right off. You can see I've done one of the three. The middle one here doesn't have a hole, so just make a little puncture mark to get the drill started. Start with a small drill bit here, then work your way up. Drill a pilot hole just so it's deep enough to go by the lip of the rivet there. And this one takes the longest, then just slowly widen it, and it should pop off with a large drill bit. You can see here's the top right here. It takes about 5 minutes each one. Our ball joint just popped out. There's sort of the remnants of it all. If you're lucky, you can probably just pop these out. If not, you may have to keep going with that drill. It just depends how rested and seized up this is, to be honest. But here's the old one. You can see the boot failed, the grease is leaked out, and there's a lot of crud in there, so we're going to replace this. Luckily the new one comes with nuts and bolts. I don't know why the original didn't, but so if you ever replace this again, you'll have a lot easier time doing that. Okay, once all those are drilled out, assess the damage. Not too bad really. Just make sure you don't go crazy on this lower control arm. If you start making huge holes, then it's going to rattle, and you're going to need to replace that. So our new ball joint here comes with a Zerk fit-in right here. So it's really like a one-way valve for pumping grease in, so we want to make sure this boot here is nicely full of grease. Out of the factory they usually have a little bit in there, but if you have a grease gun and whatnot, they are really useful for tie rods, ball joints and stuff. So I do recommend picking one up. Yeah, just pump it full of grease. Don't let it kind of swell up. You just want a little bit in there just so it keeps the joint nice and healthy. So prime the grease gun by just pulling the handle and make sure grease is flowing before connecting it to the buoy joint here. Same with tie rods too. And once connected, just push onto the Zerk fitting, and once connected, just pump it full of grease. Okay, this is now full of grease. A little grease just escapes here. That's sort of know when you have enough in there. So it feels pretty good and ready to go. This came with 3 brand new bolts and a new pin for the castle nut there, so we should be ready to get this installed back on the car. Before you put the bolts in, it might be a good idea just to file away the top surface here so it's nice and flat, and it doesn't have any of those kind of little hang metal files from the rivets that were in there before. I just sprayed it all down with brake cleaner so there's no metal filings anywhere, and we should be good to put this back on. Right, the bolts are back in. Just get a wrench on one end and a wrench on the other, tighten them all up. It's nice and solid. Just push down on the lower control arm to get the lower ball joint back into the knuckle here. Your lower ball joint is somewhat lined up. Just get a jack and lift up the lower control arm. This pushes everything into place. I used the jack as just like a guide. I didn't use too much pressure, but it just allowed me to keep it steady once it's in that position. So now we can put the castle nut back on, the ball joint and a pin, and yeah, we'll connect the tie rod and we should be good to go. Right, tie rod goes back in, and then we should be good to go. Wheel back on, car down, give it a test ride, see if it's any better. Thank you for watching, hope it helps.